All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Living the Dream podcast. Today on the show, we are going through Proverbs 11, verse 1. Let's get it. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. Baseline interpretation of this: don't put too much importance on any one thing, or it becomes an idol. And I say this because when I was looking at the commentary of this, I Googled it. The first thing that came up was that this metaphor or this scripture is often related to or kind of similar to, or the idea behind it is such that you have a stick balancing on a kind of point in the middle, and you have more of that stick to the left than to the right. It's not perfectly balanced. You have more over here and less over there, right? And so the idea behind that is you're putting more importance on one side instead of the other. So now you're trying to balance the stick as opposed to it being balanced. So that's what when I looked up on Google about this verse, that's the commentary that came up, the metaphor that came up. And putting too much importance on one thing means you're putting more of the stick to the left than the right. And so it can't be balanced. But when things aren't important, or when you have a really wide base, it's much easier to balance things. And we'll talk about that wide base a little bit further in the podcast. But the self-improvement application of this is to cut negative influences and build positive influences, because if you're putting too much importance on one thing, it probably means that you have somebody or something telling you to put more importance on that thing, because it's not coming from God. And it's probably not coming from you. It's probably coming from some attempt to people please or some misconception you have about the world. Because, in our baseline kind of operating system, we're not sitting here judging ourselves, being mean to ourselves when there's nobody around. We learn that behavior, right? And so as you start to put more importance on one thing, is to get a result. And that result, there's a desire behind it. And that desire is probably tied to your status in society or something to that effect, right? So when you cut those negative influences, you're able to stop placing importance on things that aren't really that important to begin with. And you can start having positive information, which helps you to balance your life in a just weight type of manner, like the scripture talks about. The entrepreneurial application of this is stage 7, team, talking about that wide base. If you have a lot of things you're trying to balance and it's on one person, it's hard to balance. But if you have a lot of things you're trying to balance and it's on 50 people, it's much easier to balance, because there's less area for it to be unbalanced, if that makes sense. For example, if I have a 5-meter stick and it's sitting on an 8-meter table, that stick isn't going to fall off that table. But if I have a 5-meter stick and it's sitting on a kind of point that is 1 inch wide, it's going to be really hard to balance that stick on that 1 inch wide base. So the wider your base, the easier it is to balance things. I think that comes into play in society with a team of people around you who are covering your bases where you can't cover them. So of that 8-meter table, you specialize in 6 inches of it, but you need a team to cover the rest of the 7-something meters that need to be covered. So that's kind of what I'm trying to get at with building that wide base, by surrounding yourself with a team or a community. Kind of similar to that who, not how mentality. Focus on your genius zone, get people around you that focus on their genius zone, and you'll be able to build something amazing together. So where has this shown up in my life? Taking the time to hang out with my wife and go play volleyball when needed. And that's really just because it helps me put my priorities straight. I like doing business, but taking the intentional time to hang out with my wife, go play volleyball with friends, go to small group, all this stuff kind of keeps me from putting too much importance on business things. But then I also just let go of expectations and I forgive myself. I really try to not be too hard on myself, because when I'm being hard on myself, it's because I'm placing importance on one area of my life, and specifically my shortcoming in that area. So as I forgive myself, accept reality as it is, and ask for help from the people around me, it helps me to kind of have a just weight and be in the delight of the Lord, as opposed to having a false balance where things are looking good, but they're just caught in a screenshot of balance, and it's not going to stay there because the base is weak. So I haven't fully figured this out, but I think there's something there with that kind of forgiveness, where it allows life to be balanced on the inside, even when it looks chaotic. So situationally, things could not be balanced or whatever. But inside, when you drop your expectations, when you accept yourself and you accept the love God has for you, it creates that balance, I think. So, what do I want this to show up in my life? Well, I want balance to come from a strong foundation of community and bearing burdens together. Again, I can juggle so much, I can forgive myself so much, I can drop expectations. But when that foundation is built with the people around you, and then the foundation of the people around you is built on Christ, like that foundation can balance anything, right? I think that's where it comes from. Not us trying to do it ourselves, but us looking to the people around us. And everybody, including ourselves, around us is built on the bedrock foundation that is the word, right? I think that's how we start to balance things, because things can't fall through the crack if big G is on it. So how can you guys apply this to your life? I would say let people in on your problems and let God in on your problems. And that looks like being vulnerable, but it also looks like knowing your problems and literally letting people into it. Like not being vulnerable with feelings and words, but in deed and in how you rely on people. It's easy for me to tell people problems about my life. Like that's not where vulnerability hits for me. Vulnerability hits for me when it comes to trust. I have to rely on you for something and I can't do it alone. Now I'm in a truly vulnerable position because you're in a spot where you can actually hurt me because I'm relying on you for a part of my life that I really care about. I think that's where vulnerability hits. That's where we need to bear burdens together. So that's what we got for you guys today on the show. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you on the next one. And on that note, we're out.